Thank you for listening to The Lawyer's Daughter. This is Jen Carroll, and this podcast does not have any video. I know I'm on YouTube, but that doesn't matter. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast here. Let's go get started. Oh my goodness, my people. So, in the spirit of renewed hope and excitement, I've decided to crawl out of my shell and revive The Lawyer's Daughter, but it is for political purposes. And if that's going to bother you, I'm going to warn you right now. But before you decide not to listen, let me explain my point of view and see if you're willing to hang around, because I think it's really important. And frankly, if you've been listening to True Crime, and if you've been listening to my podcast or have listened in the past to my podcast, you know there's a few things I really care about. I care about human rights. I care about civil rights and justice. And I think that's what attracts a lot of us to true crime. And so the part of this campaign, well, first of all, I'm super excited because it feels like this heavy weight of doom and gloom has been lifted. And there's hope again, which is honestly super American to have hope. Like God, I grew up in the Kennedy years. Like I was born during the Kennedy years. Hope was everything. Hope was my motivation. As a 60s kid, guys, aside from the Vietnam War, and even that we were hopeful about, we had hope. In the 70s, we had hope. My God, we had disco. If you cannot explain a culture that had hope to be so brave that they could have disco, I mean, come on, America's been built on hope. So, all right, I'll set that soapbox aside. The other is that we really care about victims' rights and we care about protecting women. I mean, that is so associated with true crime. We have watched over and over and over again how powerful people hurt less powerful people. And they get away with it. So here's the deal. Kamala Harris loves Venn diagrams. So do I, because I'm a nerd. And by the way, I've kind of spent a lot of my life marking myself against her, because I think in another world, had my dad not been murdered, I would have been exactly like her. Like that, I could see me having that trajectory. I'm not saying I could see me having that success, but you guys know me. I'm hard to put down. But I've just always paced her, and I consider her in all the best ways. Not like she's got all this and I don't. No, never that way. More as a peer. You know, you find people in your life that you kind of pace yourself against, not because you want them to lose or be harmed, but in fact, they represent what you should aspire to. That is a reasonable thing for you to want to be. And let's face it, I grew up thinking I was going to be president. Yeah, that was me. Anyway, on the Venn diagram, going back to the Venn diagram, there's a huge Venn diagram between what her campaign stands for, what the Democrats stand for, and what true crime people stand for. We stand for justice. We stand for law and order. We stand for truth. We don't want to see people be convicted wrongly. We want prison reform because we know it's cruel too. We want this to reflect our humanity. That's a true crime need, to reflect our humanity. And we want the bad guys to be held accountable. And I mean accountable, not in jail for 4 months because, they otherwise are a good human being. No, we want them to be held accountable. And I believe with a prosecutor in the chair leading our country, we might be able to right things. There's a ton of work to be done. This is not rose-colored glasses. We have a lot of work to do. But as we head into this campaign, there is a lot we true crime people can do. And so what I want to do is bring to light some of the issues that affect the true crime community and that affect us as the law and order community. So it still will have the lawyer's daughter taste because, let's face it, I really do love the law, and I love the law as a layperson, not as a lawyer. I love seeing how we can use it to help ourselves and to fight injustice and to help us move forward as a country and work to fight for equality and justice. And again, not perfect. That Venn diagram, there's a lot of, ketchup on the walls in there, but we'll get it off. So my plan is, we got 100 days, right? And it starts today. And why not take that 100 days and do a short podcast every day? It'll only be pod. It will not be on YouTube. I'm not doing videos. I'm just going to talk to you because I miss you so much, but I'm just going to talk to you. If you want to talk back to me, I hate to say this, but I am on Twitter. And the reason I'm on Twitter, it's another, I hate to say it again, but an institution I want to fight for. It's not, I know it's a private business. I know it's run by a monster, but right now it's such the epitome of what's wrong in America. The fact that Elon could post an AI video of a presidential candidate, which is illegal in many states in our country, and just be okay with it and just put it out there and be taking down somebody like Pete Souza, who was the White House photographer during the Obama years. This man is nothing if not just pure goodness. Pete Souza was removed from Twitter this weekend. It doesn't make any sense. He's like an American. He's right up there with like Michael Beschloss and other amazing people who are out there who care about the country and care about documenting our country's history. Like, come on. So anyway, here's the goal of this daily podcast. And I'm going to try to do it daily because it'll keep me motivated too. And crap, I realize this is the one thing I can do that I can actually fit in and while I'm trying to do work and deal with all these other things. I can come on once a day and talk to you guys and let's just motivate each other. So my point was, come talk to me on Twitter. I think it's Jen Carroll or J Carroll. You'll find me. And it's always on my website. You can find my Twitter handle as well. I'm not really showing up on Facebook right now just because I can't do it. And I just can't get it caught. It's just too many feelings and emotions and people that I just don't need to talk to right now. And I mean that in the kindest way, but I just don't have a lot of time, I guess is the reason I'm on Facebook. So Twitter's that. I am also on Threads. I've got to start turning it on more because I realize sane people are on Threads and Threads is sticking around, although I do hate Zuckerberg as well. But okay, whatever. We can't make these guys disappear. So the biggest point of today's podcast, and this is Monday, July something. I don't even know what date it is. July 29th. Oh my goodness. Tomorrow's my daughter's birthday. Today is Monday the 29th, July 29th. It's 100 days. And the most important thing you need to know is there's an important phone call today at 7:30 Eastern time. There's actually several phone calls tonight. And the reason these calls are really important, if you haven't joined one, first I want to tell you, there's no commitment. You don't have to put in your credit card number. This is nothing. This is listening and learning. So these calls are super important. You can find, I will post it. It'll always be on my Twitter. I'm reposting like crazy. The call is available. Let me see. Let me look up that URL. I'll look up the URL while we're talking. Anywho, it's an important call, and it's with hang on, I'm going to tell you, it's with the Democratic National Committee, events.democrats.org. And what they should have on there's a women's call tonight. And the reason it's for women, in case you're wondering why we keep breaking this down to start, is we're coming and addressing the concerns of the people who are going to be pro Kamala and how we come to the campaign. So it's not how she comes to the campaign, it's how we come to the campaign. And white women come, and this isn't a white woman call, that already happened. That's moved on. We're aligning as women, but white women as a voting bloc, we share some concerns like body autonomy and safety and decent sentences for rapists and testing rape kits and getting rapists convicted with prison sentences that match the crime. So what they're doing is they're aligning the constituents around our common interests right now. This is early campaigning, and you may have forgotten how to do this. This is what we used to do in the olden days before Trump kind of made everything weird, and then the pandemic actually limited I changed our behavior. And so there's a whole generation, if you think about it, your kids, they've never seen this before. This is a great activity. I was involved in this when I was a kid. My dad dragged us to Democratic Central Committee event. He called them functions all the time. We were dressed up little kids and we would be walking around going to all these functions. So I really encourage you to think about involving your children. It's fun. I remember when Obama won, I sat on the couch sobbing. And I know my daughter, she was excited, but she couldn't understand. And we talked about history and we talked about how history changes. And sometimes there are great moments in history that change things, like having a woman for president. So involving your kids, even though they can't vote, but in California, you can take your kids to the polls and they have a kids vote thing. Really cool. My daughter loved that. It made her feel so awesome. And they give you a I have voted sticker. It's just a great way to expose your kids to civics. But I'm in California and our voting is really, really safe. I understand in other states voting is going to be, let's just say, contentious. And we'll see how I'm going to follow some of that stuff. That's the kind of stuff I want to follow. I want to see. Mark Elias is an amazing lawyer. And he has been fighting a lot of these unjust voting prevention laws that have been coming up. I want to look at some of those. But I also want to tell you some of the other important legal things that are going on throughout this election process. So if you decide to listen to my podcast, you're deciding to listen because somehow you think listening to me is delightful. God love you. And number two, you just want to know more about what's going on. And this is an absolutely low risk way to participate. So I'll give you some good stories every day. I'll tell you some things to worry about. And it will have some campaign enthusiasm. It won't have a tiny bit. You know me, I'm an extrovert and I don't have any friends right now. I do have friends. I just don't leave my house. So you're going to see some extroversion on this podcast, but hopefully it'll be what you need to just help you get going and remember to take small steps and do what you can do. And you may decide the way you want to do it. I really want your vote, but if you can't vote, I get it. If you need to take positive action in other ways, so be it. Anything that comes out of this is positivity, I'm on board. I just really think that we have an opportunity to come together and make a difference. And I'm going to use this podcast to do that as the lawyer's daughter. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'll make sure that you consider listening to those calls. There's a call for white men tonight. Not white. Is it white men? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. Now that we're at 100 days, these lines are over. And frankly, there's so many hot guys that are going to be on that call tonight, but I will stay with my women, even though all the hot guys are going to be over on the men's call. Jen, move on. Okay, sorry, I'm moving on. Anyway, that is today's big call on the podcast. Welcome back. I'm going to do this for 100 days. This is Take It to the Bridge. This is my bridge. And I think if I can get my act together, the lawyer's daughter might be back next year. There's some things cooking that are interesting, and I kind of can't wait to share them with you guys, but I need them to cook more. Like, I just barely broke the eggs. We've got to at least start to see the whites turn to white. So that's a metaphor. That's what I'm saying. I'm not cooking. I would never cook. That's not a good thing. Okay, so welcome back. Glad to have you here. So excited. I will be back tomorrow with more, like I said, short podcasts. Oh, let me just share a little. Okay, if you are still listening, let me just share a little update on my personal life because a lot of you know my mom was like my stalwart anchor my whole life. Fudge, now I'm going to cry and I don't want to cry. Anyway, she got 2 aortic aneurysms in her chest that were diagnosed in February, and by April she was gone. It was the worst. She had to come to my house. She never got to go back to her house from the hospital. She had to come to my house. She had to die here, and I underestimated the impact it would have on me. It has been the worst. And watching someone die, folks, this is not a good thing. This is not something that we were made for, not like this. So I will tell you, in California, there is a California, I forget what it's called, Choice Act or something like this. But what it is it lets you choose to drink a drink that will let you pass peacefully. And we missed it by moments. Mom really wanted to do that, and we missed it by moment. And instead, I would say it took her 5 days in real badness, where she really couldn't speak to me and she wasn't particularly coherent, but it was awful. Awful. I cannot stress this enough. Awful. And so I am bouncing slowly from that. It was hard. It was hard. But the upside has been that so many things happened with that. It caused this cascade of my daughter moving back down to Santa Cruz to move him to my mom's place, which is kind of nice. I didn't expect her to live that close to me again because she had a lot of bad things that happened in Santa Cruz. And so we'll have a rental in Sacramento, which is kind of nice. That's the house I was in during the trial. So that's kind of cool. I'm glad to have Katie back closer. But it's been overwhelming how much stuff we've had to do, from my mom's affairs to moving people to moving my mom's stuff, which, by the way, hasn't happened. As all of you know, this is not a fun process. So every house I own is upside down and full of stuff, and we are clearing it away. And I'm going to just give 2024 over to elections, coping, and getting things moved out, which apparently is right on track for what this Chinese New Year is all about. This is the Chinese New Year of tumult, and I would say America's full-on tumult, including my personal life. So that's just what's been happening in the background. I'm also going to be unemployed shortly, so why not use this time for boosting America and reinstalling our institutions, refortifying our institutions, and coming together, getting to talk to all of you again, some of my favorite people on the planet. I have had the best followers, and I have missed you. So here we go. Short recording. We're off. This is great. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Make sure you subscribe and rate, and I'll be back with another episode really soon.